So hi, I decided to make a drawing tutorial because why not? So I normally use this brush to draw. It's named pencil graphite, I think, and I usually sketch in blue because why not? So I'll start with a sketch. I'm drawing my OC Valentine for this one because yes, I know it's a great reason, but whatever. Okay, I think it's done like that. It, I won't draw the full figure because I think it would take way too much for this tutorial. Maybe I'll make another. Okay, so now I make another layer and I lower the opacity of this one, and I usually make a folder. Mostly when I draw multiple characters, but also when I make only one. And now I'll start with the coloring, and I use this one brush that I created. It's named the Moai because Moais are important, very important. Then, well, it's like this, and I can also draw the use the bucket tool. It won't work because the skin is too light, but sometimes, I mean, it should work in theory. And I also do one layer per color because so I won't confuse. Okay, I guess the base color is done. Consider this drawing with raster, so it isn't as good as my normal drawings. Okay, now I guess I'll work on the shading, rendering, or how you want to call it. So I add a new layer and clip it to the color layer. Then choose the same color and do, for the skin I usually do a red tone, and I saturate it a bit and like that, more or less. I mean, it depends on the skin color. Then I usually use the pencil graphite brush, and the opacity I start with 8%, and then I do it higher depending on the opacity I don't find other words. And also depending on the lighting is coming from here, so the shadow should be here. Just don't take all of that seriously because I'm not a professional artist, so I just learned randomly. Okay, so once I did this base, I'll do another layer, still clipping, and I'll blur, or how do you pronounce it again? I forgot. Well, whatever. I do it like that. I basically take the color from the piece and then I color it in with not the max opacity, just so it can be blurred. Again, I forgot how to pronounce it. Okay, it's done. Now just I'll do the comparison, or how to say. As you can see, it's much smoother. Then I'd add a bit of blush. It also still depends on the skin tone. For example, he has a very pale skin tone, so I'll do a normal red instead. For someone with a darker skin tone, I do a darker red, or it will look like it's glowing on the skin. And I use the airbrush and just add a bit of blush on the cheeks, on the nose, on the ears, and then usually also on the hands, on the knees, on other parts I forgot for now, but maybe you can see it if you look at some stuff I made. And then the lighting, I just use white or steel for the skin tone, a lighter tone of the skin. Now that the skin is done, I'll repeat the process with all the other colors. Okay, now instead with the highs, I first do a bit of shading here, then I do the borders, because, well, if you look at a real eye, they have darker borders usually, not always, but usually. And then I add another layer with a lighter color like that, and I set the layer on add, and now it will look like it's glowing. Then to make the lighting, the lighting on the hair in building curvatures and on the eyes, because they are like, they reflect stuff. I don't know how to say it. And I do a dark color of the light they are reflecting, and then like that. For example, that's the sky being like blue, and I do it darker. And still I used my moai brush. It's very important, the moai. I found this thing on a tutorial that I'll link in the description, because it's not like a thing I found out by myself. So I set then the layer on screen, and it looks like that. And then I use the airbrush eraser to erase the extra parts like that. And then I add still with a moai layer brush, a little light, usually here or here, depends on something, and then I use the airbrush to make it look like it's glowing a bit. though this made with the tutorial I found. Okay, so now for the hair, it's totally a thing I used with I learned with the tutorial, so I just will speed it up. Okay, now another thing I do is to make some white borders, and to do that I just import the same drawing I made, so add layer from the folder, then use the alpha block, or how it's named, and then color everything in white, or either any color you want the borders to be. Unlock the block, the alpha block. No, wait, I accidentally put it under the folder. Okay, and then I use the Gaussian blur. Okay, twice maybe, it's a bit better. Okay, and then I duplicate the layer and do it many times. Okay, like that I think it's fine. And then of course the most important part is the signature. I normally take like a part of a color from the drawing itself, just so it can match and write. Okay, it's done now. Thanks for watching. I hope you watched it, and bye.